Yo folks, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about team building for Nikke, the importance of positions, burst orders, and best possible team comps. Let's jump right into this. First thing is go into squad right here. We're gonna look at two different teams, team 1, team 2. Which one do you think is better? If you pick team 1, you're wrong. Now let's talk about it. So if we go into the team viewer right here, on the left hand side, this is actually going to be how the term order flows. So it's going to be N102, our SR, and then it's going to be novel right here, and then it's going to be helm. Now the reason why team 1 is so inefficient is because 1, novel is more of a defensive style unit, and if you look at her burst skill, you can see it's based off of damage taken. It's going to be based off of cornucopia. It needs to be fully stacked and whatnot. You're not going to stack cornucopia that high at the very beginning, so it's not going to be doing its full effect. 1. 2, we also have Helm right here, and as great as Helm is for her burst skill, she's not exactly known for damage. She's going to be restoring HP, at least for her burst skill. So you don't really need to store HP at the beginning of the fight because usually everyone's pretty tanky and not enough enemies have jumped on the field. So this leads on to the fact why this team is a little bit better just based off of positions, because Admi right here, her burst skill is going to be increasing reloading speed and crit damage. We all know how those two things are insanely important. And then of course, if you look at someone like Haran, she does insane damage with her burst skill. It's practically an AoE wipe, 624%. But this is because, you know, I don't have it max level. This is a brand new account. So this is the things that we need to pay attention to, where it's like, oh, how can I min-max my team to run certain stages? Believe it or not, I ran both of these teams. Team 1 failed on the same stage. Team 2 won on the same stage. And I was 800 power below. And I think you guys already know how, or if you didn't know, Reddit posted a thing where if you have a certain power level and you jump into a stage that you're not powered up on, you won't have your full stats. So usually this person would have 85,000 in total status. Now they're bumped down to 63,000. It's just something to take note of in case you're wondering, why isn't my team dealing enough damage? Even though like I have the proper units and everything. So now you guys know about burst order and how that's so important, and you know how power reduction is scaled in the game. Let's jump into another thing. So we're on Prydwen right here. There's going to be two concepts for team building, 212 and 113. 212 is when you have two burst 1 skills. So for example, you know, N102 and Ether, then they would be the 2 burst 1 skills. And then I would have Admi as my single burst 2, and then 2 burst 3s. Now the reason why this is important is because we'll always rotate a burst 1 a lot faster. But at the same time, the most important part is we have someone like Admi right here who has their skill cooldown on her burst skill as 20 seconds. That's really important. In case you don't know how to check that, you can go on Prydwen. If you scroll down, they have the 20-second cooldown infos right there. Now, some of you guys might be wondering what's the other team comp, and this is like the more DPS oriented one where you run 1 burst 1, 1 burst 2, and 3 burst 3s. The thing is, you'll be dealing more damage and you'll constantly be cycling your burst 3s, but it leaves you in a position where you will have more opportunities where the enemies can deal more damage to you. And the reason for that is just because of the fact that you will be lacking support skills, lacking healing. Because a lot of the burst 1 type units and burst 2 type units, they're just going to be more support oriented, and burst 3s are just more damage. Just take that into account when you're building a team and you're just like, why am I dying all the time? It's mostly because of the fact that you don't have enough supports. But again, we have to roll into the fact that even if you have supports, if you don't have enough power, even if you survive the stage, it doesn't really matter because that 75% thing is still going to be haunting you. It's just something to pay attention to. So now that you know the 212, the 113, and all those like fancy words, how exactly do you build a team based off of this knowledge? So if you go into the CN tier list right here, they have it so that they are based off of their burst skills. And I like this a lot more because it makes it easier for you to be like, oh, I have N102, she's really good. That'll make it so that I can run her as my normal burst 1 unit. By the way, she's much better than Ludmilla because N102 does an attack buff that is insane. And I just tried it on my other teams and it was kind of making me angry because her attack buff was going crazy. You can read this order where left to right is more important. So for example, in this situation, volume is going to be better than Rapunzel, Rapunzel's better than Milk, and then Milk's better than Miranda. But take this with a grain of salt. all that you need to know that these are really great supports if you have them. Rocket launcher units are kind of iffy because they require more manual play in order to be really good, but just note these are based off of the fact that they're just overall just good in those positions for their burst type. So Dolo right here is actually insane. If you didn't know, she has a 5-second duration of an attack 16%, and that's on a 10-second cooldown. So you're always scaling your attack percent, which is kind of insane. And that's what makes her by far T0. And then of course we have like, you know, Polly and then Diesel. Some of you might be wondering, why is Diesel like rated higher than some of the SSRs? Mostly because Diesel has the reload magazine 86%, which of course it takes a while to get to, but once you get it, it just lasts forever. And that just goes really hard for almost any single unit. So on elongated fights, Diesel goes crazy. Everyone has her, so that's one of the things. So if you have N102 and you have Diesel, you have the makings of a pretty decent team already, I gotta say it. And then going to burst 3s, we have Haran and Scarlet. Some of you might be wondering, why is Yoha right here? If you actually take a look at her skills right here, her skill 2 makes it so that every 30 seconds, she'll be giving everyone a 90% attack buff for 5 seconds, which is actually insane. And I think there's ways so that, you know, you can trigger it at optimal times. And not to mention, you know, she has an effect hit that hits everyone, which is really good because the only people that has like the effect hit all, which high damage percent, is going to be Haran. So in some ways they're equivalent and they're both snipers. They don't fill the exact same role because Haran's a lot better, but just something to take note of. Yoha is more valuable based off of her attack buff, and then so on and so forth with everyone else. Now, one thing to note is that this tier list values burst skills over single target viability. Like the Prydwen site is known for viewing units based off of individual value. This tier list is based off of the fact of how they function in a team composition, and that's why it's a little bit different. If you actually look at the JP tier list, it's actually functioning in the exact same way, where Haran, she's like the upmost like toppity top unit based off of team compositions. Then of course you have Scarlet, and then Yoha, Privity, and all the other units, right? Just note, even though they're in tier 2, they say it does not mean weak, so tier 2 units are very usable. Only tier 3 units are the ones that are a little bit iffy, but you know, at the same time you could still use them. And what's interesting is they have Senti and Uni up here really high, and I think this is because of manual operation. And of course they have Polly up top with Edmi and Dola. Dola of course should be in 2.0.5 in my opinion. And of course they have Liter at T0, Rapunzel and Pepper up top at the very tippity top. It's interesting how they don't have volume in T1, but at the same time, my favorite tier list has to just go to this one because it just makes building team comps a lot easier. And this goes on to the best team composition. So we're not going to look at these because those are just out of like the world for a lot of us. Something like this is a little bit more feasible, where you have someone like Neon and then N102. Of course, you wouldn't put Neon in front of N102. And then you have someone like Balorta, Rappy, of course, goes before Mihara. So this is like a budget team that they recommend. And then, of course, the upgraded version is, you know, replace Neon, not in that position, put Leader there, and then Diesel, and then Rappy. So if you have like something like this, that would be really good. I just don't know why they're using Neon. And they said you can change Neon for Milk because Milk is pretty good as well. Milk in some ways is like a downgraded version of Dola, but that's just my opinion. It's up to you how you want to like grade those things. So if you have Milk, make sure to use her because she's on like the same leagues as Volume and Liter. What are the best team compositions in the game? So some of the best ones are pretty much Liter and Dola, and then slap Scarlet or whatever DPS unit you have. If you have those two units, I think it sort of speaks for itself that this is the best way. And just note they have Yoha sitting in the back because she's not going to be casting her burst skills. It's mostly going to be Scarlet on Haran. And depending on the stage you're going to be tackling, you might want to use Haran over Scarlet because, you know, you need more AoE and Scarlet's just going to be dealing more single target DPS. It's up to you. And then this, of course, is the Red Lotus specialized team where, you know, Red Lotus being Scarlet, so you're focusing more on Scarlet stuff. And yeah, the first unit's going to be flexible based off of who you want to use. But I would say a lot of people do favor Haran a little bit better. There is going to be some things why. There's like damage multipliers that are a little bit weird that causes her to deal more damage in certain situations. And just note, Haran is better in PvE than Scarlet just because Haran can do a full map clear. And of course, Yoha is really invaluable because of that full map clear. And just not a lot of units can do the full map clear with a lot of damage. Just try to make it so that your burst 1 skill is going to be more support oriented. Try not to make it more DPS. Same thing with your burst 2, make it more DPS oriented. You want to save like your defensive burst skills in the back. So, you know, for example, Helm and Novel right here, since they're more defensive oriented, you don't need that stuff. Because as soon as you jump on the stage, you want guns blazing, hitting the enemy as hard as you can. And then you can worry about survivability. And of course, you know, you can worry about power and the difference of like all that stuff later on. But at the end of the day, this is what I've been doing in order to push the reroll account that I have as far as possible. I think it's just something that not a lot of people talk about when it comes to team comps. If you put the unit more on the left side, you can deal more damage. And this little stuff, it'll help you beat 1 more stage or 2 more stages. But at the end of the day, this will just help you run stages better because you know how skills are going to be casted and the importance of survivability over DPS. But anyways, if you made it this far in today's video, consider subscribing, dropping a like, leaving a comment, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram if you want to see workouts and what I do. I'll be at AXGB this weekend. I'll see you there if you're there. Once we have 40k subs, we're doing a giveaway. Thanks so much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic day. Let me know if you have more tips down in the comments. And yeah, thanks so much for watching and see ya.